Hello and welcome to a new episode of What Are You Selling with me, David Green. And today I am delighted to be joined by uh, the amazing, such prolific author Jamie McFarlane. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for coming on. When I saw your name appear on the list of guests, I was like, this is by far the most well-known author I've had on the show so far, and most prolific as well. Because I've read your work before, and I was kind of looking through doing more research, and I was actually didn't realize that you had so much catalog of stuff out. I mean, it's quite impressive. It's very impressive. So when did you start writing?
It's kind of an interesting story. I've known that I wanted to write for a long time, so much so that when I was a teenager, I remember getting done playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons of all things, and coming up from the basement, and my friends were leaving, and we were talking to my mom, and she said, she made some comment about how maybe that would make a good story, things that we'd done. I said, oh, I plan to write a book about this, Mom. And she looked at me as all moms look at their teenagers and said, oh, isn't that great, honey? And I said, no, I'm going to do it. And then so that I kind of announced my intention back then. I don't know how serious I really was at the moment. I think she was probably right in her assessment. But the first book I ended up writing, I'm a software developer by trade. So that's what I was doing when I decided to kind of get going writing books. But the dedication in my first book was actually was to my mom, and basically a promise fulfilled sort of thing. So but the story of getting started, though, was kind of an interesting moment. My sister was over for a Christmas, and we got through all of Christmas. And Christmas, like in our house, is as crazy as everybody else's Christmas. And so we finally got to the post party where you're just kind of hanging out, talking. I'm sure we were drinking something, and she said, "Hey, I've got something to show you." And I said, "Oh, well, that sounds interesting." And my sister is 5 years older than me, and I point this out to her a lot. And then we used to play a space game together, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, but it was something we invented with another friend of ours, a fellow by the name of Jeff Rothermel. So we invented this game, and we like to play this game. It was much like Dungeons and Dragons, so we used to kind of invent stories together where we'd kind of talk through these stories. Well, she pulls out this sheet of paper, which is an Excel spreadsheet. And she said, well, last spring I started writing, and you can release your books on Amazon and they'll sell them. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I mean, yes, I guess I knew people were doing something like that, but really, I figured it wasn't really for people like us, right? It wasn't really, a person really couldn't make that work. And she handed me this spreadsheet, and I saw on there that she was making real money. I mean, it wasn't, buy a new BMW kind of real money, but it was, pay for some groceries or, whatever. It was real money. And I said, wow, how did you do that? She said, well, she writes cozy mysteries. And she said, I just started this cozy mystery. And all you have, you put it together, we edited it and all the rest of that. And I got it out there, and, I've got a third book coming out now, and I'm starting to gain traction with my readers. My sales are increasing. I looked at the spreadsheet and I said, wow, and it just blew me away. And as I looked at that, and I said, this could actually work. So I started that next day, I started writing a young adult fantasy called Lesser Prince. And I got about a week into, maybe 2 weeks into writing that. And I kind of shook my head and I said, well, I love this story and I like where it's going and all the rest of that, but I'm a science fiction guy. And that's when I started working on Rookie Privateer, which is the first of the Privateer Tales series, which is a 19-book series at this point. Yeah. And about to be 20 books. I can happily say that I'm writing the epilogue on that today. Right. So I'm real excited about that. So I started writing that, and I got to the point where I was done. And I remember it's very clear in my memory because it hit milestones. I was 49 years old, and my birthday is in April. And I got the book all complete, edited, got a kind of a pathetic little cover picture for it. The artwork was pathetic's the wrong word, because I don't want to make fun of the artist, because she put a lot into it and worked on it, but it just wasn't kind of current standards. But I got that all put together, and I remember sitting there getting ready to hit the button to release that book. And it's a terrifying moment for a lot of authors, and me included at the time. I've done a lot of it now, so it's not quite as terrifying. But I just sat there for maybe 5 minutes waiting to hit that button, and I finally hit the button. And then, as you know, the next steps on that were crickets, right? Nothing happens. And it's the most disturbing moment and for the next couple, 2-3 days, nothing happened. And then something amazing happened. I sold, I think it was 12 books on day 4 or 3 or 4, or whatever it was. And I sold them to people that I knew for a fact weren't people I knew. And the reason I knew that is because everybody I'd sold to, I'd already accounted for them in the first day and discounted that their sales meant nothing to me, because I'm just that guy. And so I got 12 sales to these people I didn't know. And then the next day I sold 3, and the next day I sold 4, and small numbers. And then by the end of a month, I'd sold 100 books. And honestly, at that point, I was as hooked as you could possibly be on, hey, I can do this. And so I immediately started writing a number 2 in that series, which was a short story. And I just kind of got interested in. So this Rookie Privateer is a first person story about it's a coming of age. Liam Hoffman grows up on an asteroid colony and runs into pirates and has to deal with that with his friends, and good sort of fun. Well, one of the pirates he runs into kind of got pulled into the pirate life, didn't really want to be a female character. And so I actually wrote her story of kind of escaping and standing above the piracy that she'd been drug into. And that was, man, I got that out real quick because it's a real short story called Fool Me Once. And then I just kept going. And so that was the 3-4 years later, I was able to quit my day job and turn to a full-time writer. And now we're 7 years later. And so really the number of books I have is all about, I just keep at it. I don't give myself a break. And I write pretty much every day, not a lot every day, but Wednesdays and Thursdays are kind of my blocked out days, and I'll write a chapter every Wednesday. I'll write a chapter every Thursday, and it has to be, I've got kind of a discipline with it. And so it's get it done, no excuses. And I get those done. And so you can write 4 books a year if you do that. Yeah, if you write 2 chapters a month, or 2 chapters a week. And for me, a chapter is 3 scenes. Each scene is 1,100 words. So Wednesday, I write 3,300 words-ish. Thursday, I write 3,300 words-ish. And you just add that up. That's 4 books a year. Do that for 7 years, you're going to have a lot of books. So
yeah, because that's the thing as well. That's great advice, by the way, because I remember there's an Irish writer. I'm based in Ireland. There's an Irish crime writer called Ken Bruen, who does the Jack Taylor series that are on Netflix and everything. And I was talking to him one time in real life, back when you were able to meet people in real life.
Yeah.
I live in the same town as him, and I had a short story in a competition that he was the judge of, and he was talking to me about it. And he said, I just write, because he brings out 2 big books a year, and he's nearly 80 now as well. He's been writing since the 70s. And he says every morning he just wakes up, goes down onto his computer now, he used to be his typewriter, he writes 2 pages, and then he reads it into a dictaphone, and then he leaves it for the rest of the day. And then when he goes to bed, he listens to the dictaphone, and if he likes what he heard, he leaves it, and if he doesn't, he deletes it and does the 2 pages again the next day. And he just does that every single day of the year. He's done by 8:30 in the morning or something. And he's like, if you do that, then every day of the year, you've got 700 odd pages.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just the discipline of doing it. But with yourself, like within the 7 years that you've been doing, I mean, you've achieved so much. I mean, you've got so many books, and just as a little fact, so I don't know if you're aware of this, but on Goodreads, for example, you have over 42,500 reviews,
Oh,
rating
wow.
on Goodreads, with an average score of 4.35, which is quite incredible. So it's like it's quantity, but it's also quality as well. So what I'd be interested to know about before we kind of talk about the Junkyard Pirate series, because I know you had the new book out there in December, is that kind of a lot of I know a lot of authors write and listen to this show. Sorry, write and listen to this show, and they listen to it or watch it on YouTube or Spotify. And one of the things that they struggle for is reviews and getting the books out in front of people. How did you come about that? Because obviously you've had a lot of success with it. Because even Junkyard Pirate, sorry, the last Junkyard, the last of the series, Junkyard Raiders, came out just in December, and it already has 1,100 reviews on Amazon. Like
Yeah, I looked at that yesterday. I was kind of surprised, to be honest.
yeah. So what kind of form? Not to give away all of your secrets or anything, but what was the kind of form that you hit upon with that?
Well, so no secrets. For just kind of I'm going to back up on you a little bit and just talk about secrets between authors. We shouldn't have any. It's really not a competition.
Yeah.
We should all be friends with each other, because I don't know about you, but I read. Oh gosh, my trouble with reading is not is finding books. So we should, birds of a feather need to come together and let people know who we are, because every reader I know can outpace my writing by so much that I might as well tell them about other great authors. So I think I paid a lot of attention to a couple of people who I think have really helped me out as in terms of getting going. One of them was Mark Dawson, who has a course that he sells on how to get started as an author. Obviously I wish I can't remember exactly the name of his course. It's been a number of years. He has multiple courses now. But the biggest thing I learned from that was not how to advertise, because advertising is important, but it doesn't really do as much as you'd like it to do. It was really getting an email list created and protecting that email list. And so I have a nice large email list of people who have said, hey, tell me about updates when something happens. And when I write an email newsletter, I'm not selling them something. I'm just telling them about what's going on in my life, both personally and with regard to the books that I'm writing. So I think being genuine in that email is important. Number two, I protect that email list as if it's my most important possession. That is, if I mention another author in there, it's because I feel it's important that person's important to me, and I think you need to hear about it. And I rarely advertise for another author. So it's just every once in a while you might see something in there, but it's maybe once a year you'll see another author's name or reference to another author's book show up in my email list, because I want my readers to, when they see that email show up, to know this is from Jamie. He's not trying to sell me on anything. He's just telling me what's going on. So I've got that kind of Midwest thing. It's hard for me to sell things. It's hard for me to tell you should buy something from me. I would much rather we just be friends, and then if you like me, then you'll go do what I say, right? Or you'll go do you'll check out what I'm doing. Yeah. So I think that has helped a lot with reviews, because a lot of my readers, I feel like they know me. They know about me. They know about the time when we have a camper. They know about the time when I didn't do the valves correctly on the camper, and I got a face full of bad stuff coming out the side of my camper when I was trying to dump. And they loved that. They thought that was hilarious, because that's one of the repeating themes in Privateer Tales, is that we always have some septic problem. Well, as soon as I have a true septic problem, they just think that is fantastic. And it was true. It was a horrific moment, but it was also funny once you kind of get cleaned up and get away from it. So be genuine in your email and really chase that down, because that for me, that's my kind of big thing. And maybe that really crosses to the rest of it, is just be genuine with your readers. The other thing is, in my books, I always have a section in there that's at the beginning and at the end that says, it's a call to action that says, join this email list. And so every once in a while, I'll beg reviews. I'll say, hey, if you're looking for something you can do to help me out, make sure you leave a review. And that's, otherwise, I don't do too much to garner reviews. I think it's just more, it's more kind of comes naturally as people start to trust that I'm not kind of giving, I'm not all sales.
Yes, exactly. So the Junkyard Pirate series. So the fifth book came out in December.
Yeah.
And there's a great thing about your books as well, is that they're almost immediately they're available on audio as well. You get them across the whole thing. So Junkyard Pirate, what I love about it, not even just like what I love about this series, is there it's an older gentleman protagonist, which I think is something that you see a bit more of these days. Particularly what I read fantasy, sci-fi, I read horror as well. So you do see it cropping up every so often, and it's always a pleasure when I see a really well-written older person going on adventures.
I was terrified to release the first Junkyard Pirate, because I had decided, we have a Facebook group where I kind of talk to readers and that sort of thing. And a lot of my readers are older gentlemen. A lot of them I write military science fiction. So obviously a lot of them have had military experience. I don't have military experience. I have a lot of respect for it. It's kind of one of the things I wish I'd done when I was younger, but of course I didn't, and all that. But at any rate, so these guys have stories to tell, and they'll tell them to you if you'll just listen. And so they always feel real heroic to me. What terrified me though wasn't really that part of it, that I wouldn't necessarily tell that story well. What terrified about was I was going to make AJ real, because I couldn't do it any other way. So when he shows up in the first book, he's a drunk, he's sarcastic, he's not very respectful towards women, he's not respectful towards his friends, and most of all, he's not respectful to himself. But what you see is a little glimmer of hope in the way that he thinks about his friends and the way that he thinks about really his dog. But I was scared. The thing that terrified me about that was it was very real. So I wasn't sure if people really wanted to deal with this guy, this old man, really, who had thoughts of an old man, and kind of was rough and tumble. So it worked out okay.
Okay. The vibe I got from AJ, I don't know if this is, and this is before I saw the picture in the back there of BB-8 and R2-D2, was that the kind of vibe that I got off him was, if Han Solo hadn't come back to rescue Luke Skywalker and it just kept on going off with his reward at the end of the original Star Wars, that's what he would have been like when he was older.
Yeah, kind of irascible and all that. Yep. No, that's I love that.
Was that something that you had in mind, or was it just, because obviously you're a Star Wars fan, unless you just particularly like R2-D2 and BB-8?
Yeah, no, I do. I like them. Although it's funny, that's the artwork is from a friend of mine, Tom Sullivan, who does ink work, and that's actually sitting on top of the laws of robotics, the 3 laws of robotics from iRobot. He takes old text, and then so he cut the pages out of this book that I handed him, the iRobot book, and then that's the paper behind it, and then he drew those 2 on top. So it's kind of a little ironic's the wrong word, just a little odd that it's Asimov with and Star Wars setting together.
That's great.
I love Star Wars. I'm not quite so fond of current Star Wars. Obviously Han Solo is by far my favorite character within Star Wars, just because he's the the rogue, and so certainly elements of that come into AJ, and really I've got this strong belief. I think most of us want to be heroes and don't really have that opportunity. And I think most of us see ourselves that way, as really desiring to be heroic. And then, so that's why I enjoyed AJ being able to become that hero. And he'd been a hero before. He'd been in war. He'd stood up in front of an enemy, and he'd been, had very bad things happen to him in war, but he had kind of held on to that humanity and wanted to step forward again. He was ready to go forward. I see that in my in the readers who I talk with who have previous military background. These guys would go back. A lot of them, they would stand up again. They would stand between the enemy and their country every day of the week. To me, that's just so heroic, and that's who AJ really represents to me. So,
well, is this the series? Is it done with 5, or is there? I've not read the 5th one yet. So
no, it's a good question. I never know what done looks like, to be honest. And what's worse is if you read my newsletters, you find out that I'll say things that are completely turned upside down the next time you get a newsletter. So you couldn't trust me if I said it was done or not done. If I said it today, all you're getting is what I feel like today. I don't feel like Junkyard is done, but it's changed dramatically. The first book is really that kind of creation story. How did AJ come into existence? And really, there's an alien invasion that obviously he works on, and all the rest of that. Well, you can't have that again. You can't take an old broken veteran and kind of heal him again in book 6. It's not going to work. So really, it just becomes a whole new thing. But there's 2 sides to every indie author, right? There's I could start a brand new story and kind of tell another broken hero story, or I could continue to write something that people really enjoy, because people get attached to these characters. And I know this. Readers get attached to your characters. And so they want to see those characters do things. And a lot of times, I'm full of anecdotes. I've heard it said, and I think it might be true, that writers want to write something new. Readers want you to tell the last story again. I don't think that's untrue.
Yeah. It is true. And it's one of those things as well, like when you finish a series, a lot of times the readers want you to tell another story that's set in that world again, because it's something that they're familiar with. And I kind of do get that. And because I enjoy that as a reader as well, when like, this was a story happening here, but on this side of the planet, there was this happening, and this and this and this. So that's why I get it as well. But I also understand the whole thing where it's like, I have this other idea that I really want to write, but it's completely different.
So the way I actually work on that is I will take my Wednesday, Thursday time is always dedicated to whatever I've decided makes the most sense for my business. And writing is a business. And a lot of people want to present it as it's all about a person and their creativity. And that a lot of that is true, but it's also a business, and you need to treat it like it's a business. So if people are interested in Junkyard, Wednesday, Thursday needs to go to Junkyard. Well, I've got 5 more days in the week. I can do anything I want with. And so I do. So I've written game lit RPG adventure called Draken Prince. I've got another one of those kind of coming out called Wizard Prince that I'm writing at the same time I'm writing I shouldn't say the final, because I don't know that, the number 20 Privateer Tales, which is about done. Thank you. I want to finish that story. I'm at that point. And so that's where I really dropped my creativity in. And that's where Junkyard came from. I was writing that in my off time to try to figure out, is this a story that would be accepted? And you can tell I have no idea who the market is, because Junkyard by far eclipsed everything I've written before. Junkyard Pirate did. And I was terrified of it. I thought, oh, this is a big risk. It'll never go. What do I know? Nothing. So book number 2 is way easier to write, just from a business perspective, because you can be confident.
Yeah, cool. So what is coming up? Because obviously we know that you like to try and do 4 books a year. So what else have you got in ready to come out for 2022? Because we know obviously you're finishing book 20 today, and that'll probably come out by this.
So yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually a kind of at loose ends trying to figure out the question is, what do I start writing next week? Because I will write the epilogue this week and I'll be done with the epilogue. The real question is, what am I going to start on next week? I right now think that I'm going to start on a story called The Oldest Starfighter.
Okay.
And so I've got a title and I've got a start, and it's kind of along the same lines as Junkyard Pirate. But instead of a Vietnam vet who's kind of had a rough life, I've got more of a heroic figure, Air Force pilot who's spent an awful lot of time in dogfights and that sort of thing, and basically goes off to fight adventures in space. And he won't have that same kind of gets healed back all the way till he looks like he's 20 years old, but he'll become well, I don't want to give too much away. Point is, it'll work. He'll be able to get involved, but it'll be an awful lot of aliens. You won't really be back on Earth at all. But I want to kind of explore something in Junkyard that I really enjoyed exploring was I've got the experiences of an older person, but now I've got the capacity of someone with a tremendous amount of energy and the rest of that. And where does that go? And then kind of mix that up with some good villains and some great side people on the side, and let's see where it goes. Right. So I think that's what I'm going to start next week. It's possible that I'll actually start Junkyard 7 next week. I don't know. I need to figure it out.
Yeah, you'll have to come back on at some point and tell us which one you plumped for and what else you have on. Thanks so much for coming on. Really, really enjoyed talking to you. People that are listening on Spotify or Apple Music or are watching on YouTube, all of Jamie's links for all his social media and for where to get his books are in the show notes. So please, please, please do check those out. And if this is the first time on the channel, please do subscribe to us or follow us, and we hope you enjoy everything that we have for you. So Jamie, thank you again so much for coming on, and best of luck for 2022.
Thank you, David.
And for everyone watching at home, thanks for staying with us till the end. Until next time.